The void between stars had never felt so alive with menace. Captain Kizu Nakamura stood before the panoramic viewport of the Amaterasu's Blueshift, watching the distant shimmer of the celestial threshold pulse with ancient energies. The artifact, if it could be called that, stretched across several thousand kilometers of space, its crystalline lattework catching and refracting light from nearby stars into impossible geometries that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," came the voice of Commander Rhiannon Blackthorne from behind him, her Welsh accent cutting through the bridge's ambient hum. "Long-range sensors are picking up movement. They're coming." Kizu's weathered hands tightened on the railing. After 3 months of defending this sector, he had hoped the alien fleet would find easier prey elsewhere. The celestial threshold had been humanity's greatest discovery, a gateway to faster-than-light travel that didn't require the slow, dangerous wormhole generators that had limited human expansion for decades. But the Valkyrie hegemony wanted it destroyed, claiming it violated some cosmic law older than Earth's sun. "How many ships?" Kizu asked, though he dreaded the answer. 17 confirmed contacts. The White Jeger is leading them. Rhiannon's voice carried a tremor she couldn't quite suppress. Everyone in the fleet knew that name. The White Jeger had carved a path of destruction through 6 human colonies, its hull said to be made from the compressed bones of dead stars. Its commander, Hierarch Veltaran, had never retreated from a battle. The bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their movements betraying none of the fear that Kizu could see in their eyes. Pilot Esperanza Delacroix, barely 25 and one of the finest helm officers in the fleet, adjusted their position with subtle thruster burns. Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov's voice crackled over the comm from the engine room, reporting readiness levels that Kizu knew were optimistic at best. The Amaterasu's Blueshift was humanity's finest warship, but she was just one vessel against an alien armada. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Hegemony Fleet," announced Communications Officer Tamir Okafor. "Put it through." The view screen flickered, replacing the stars with the imposing figure of Hierarch Veltaran. The alien's form was humanoid but wrong in ways that made humans instinctively uncomfortable. His elongated skull housed 3 eyes that glowed with bioluminescent intelligence, while chitinous plates covered skin that seemed to shift between colors like oil on water. When he spoke, his voice resonated with harmonics that suggested multiple vocal cords. "Human vessel," Veltaran intoned, "you defend an abomination. The threshold tears at the fabric of reality itself. Your species lacks the wisdom to wield such power responsibly." Kizu stepped forward, his own image now transmitted to the alien fleet. "The threshold is humanity's discovery, made through our exploration and sacrifice. We've used it responsibly for peaceful expansion." "Peaceful?" Veltaran's laugh was like breaking glass. "Your kind spreads like a plague, consuming worlds and resources. The threshold would accelerate this destruction beyond calculation. We offer you one chance: withdraw, and we will spare your lives." "Counter-offer," Kizu replied, his voice steady despite the churning in his stomach. "Turn around and leave human space. The threshold stays operational." Veltaran's 3 eyes narrowed. "Then you choose extinction." The transmission cut off, leaving the bridge in tense silence. Kizu turned to face his crew, seeing the mixture of determination and terror in their faces. These weren't career soldiers, most were scientists, engineers, and explorers pressed into military service by humanity's desperate need to defend its discoveries. Yet they stood ready to face an alien armada for the chance to secure humanity's future among the stars. "All hands, battle stations," Kizu announced over the ship's comm, "this is what we trained for. The threshold represents more than just faster travel, it's humanity's chance to truly join the galactic community as equals rather than slow newcomers struggling to catch up. Today we prove that humans don't back down from a righteous fight." As alarm klaxons sounded throughout the ship, Kizu watched the approaching alien fleet on the tactical display. The White Jeger commanded from the center, its pale hull reflecting no light, making it appear like a wound in space itself. Around it, smaller vessels moved in formations that spoke of military discipline refined over millennia. Estimated time to engagement, he asked. 47 minutes at current approach speed, Rhiannon replied. 47 minutes to prepare for a battle that would determine whether humanity's greatest discovery would become the foundation of its future or the catalyst for its destruction. Kizu looked once more at the celestial threshold, its impossible beauty a stark contrast to the approaching darkness of war. The silence before battle carried its own weight. 43 minutes had passed since Veltarun's ultimatum, and the Velkari fleet had spread into a classic hammer-and-anvil formation that Kizu recognized from human military archives. The aliens might be advanced, but warfare apparently followed universal principles. "All stations report ready," Commander Blackthorne announced, her earlier nervousness replaced by professional focus. "Weapons charged, shields at maximum, fighter squadrons standing by for launch." Kizu nodded, studying the tactical hologram floating above the command console. The Amaterasu's Blueshift couldn't match 17 enemy vessels in a straight fight, but they had advantages. The ship's advanced human AI, nicknamed Prometheus by the crew, could calculate firing solutions faster than most organic minds. Their quantum torpedo arrays packed more destructive power than anything in their size class. Most importantly, they were fighting for their home. "Dimitri, how are those engine modifications coming?" Kizu called to the engineering section. "The resonance collectors are online, Captain," came the Russian's reply through static-laden comm. "We can draw power from the threshold's energy emissions, but I'm not sure the ship's systems can handle the overload for long." It was a desperate gambit, using the very artifact they were defending as a power source. Human engineering had always been about adapting and improvising, turning disadvantages into unexpected strengths. If it worked, they might survive the next hour. If it failed, the ship would tear itself apart from the inside. "Enemy fleet is adjusting course," reported sensor technician Nalani Kyo. "The White Jeger is holding back while lighter vessels move to flank us." Kizu frowned. Veltarun was being cautious, probing for weaknesses rather than charging straight ahead. It suggested the hierarch respected human capabilities more than his diplomatic posturing had indicated. "Launch fighters," Kizu ordered. "Attack pattern Delta 7. Tell squadron leader Yuki to keep them focused on the light cruisers, we can't let them get behind us." On the view screen, 12 sleek fighters erupted from the Amaterasu's Blueshift's launch bays, their engines painting brief stars against the darkness. Led by squadron leader Yuki Sato, they angled toward the flanking Velkari vessels with the deadly grace of hunting raptors. The first exchange of fire came without fanfare. Crimson energy beams lanced out from the alien fleet, their light painting the ship's hull in bloody shadows. The Blueshift's shields flared and held, absorbing energies that would have vaporized smaller vessels. In response, quantum torpedoes streaked toward the nearest Velkari ship, their warheads designed to disrupt the exotic matter that comprised alien hulls. The explosions bloomed like deadly flowers in the void, and when they faded, the enemy vessel was listing badly, atmosphere venting from multiple hull breaches. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Kizu remained focused on the larger picture. One damaged ship against 16 intact ones wasn't encouraging odds. "Captain, I'm reading some kind of energy buildup from the White Jeger," Nalani reported, her voice tight with concern. "It's not like anything in our databases." On the tactical display, the massive alien flagship pulsed with building power. Its hull plates were rearranging themselves, revealing weapon systems that seemed to bend light around their apertures. Whatever the Velkari were preparing, it was clearly their response to humanity's unexpected effectiveness. "Esperanza, evasive maneuvers, pattern Omega," Kizu commanded. "All power to forward shields." The ship lurched as Delacroix threw them into a spiraling dive that would have liquefied an unprotected human. The inertial dampeners screamed in protest, but held. It was almost enough. The beam that erupted from the White Jeger defied easy description. It wasn't energy in any conventional sense, but rather an absence, a lance of absolute void that seemed to devour light itself. Where it passed, space itself appeared damaged, reality crackling at the edges like burnt paper. The beam grazed the Blueshift starboard shields, and the entire ship convulsed. Emergency lights flickered as primary power systems overloaded, and the smell of burning electronics filled the air. Through the ship's groaning hull, Kizu could hear damage reports flooding in from every section. Shields down to 30%, Blackthorn reported through gritted teeth. Hull breaches on decks 12 through 15. We've lost 2 torpedo launchers and the secondary sensor array. But they were alive, which was more than Kizu had expected. The White Jeger's weapon, devastating as it was, apparently required significant charging time between shots. That gave them a window, brief, but potentially enough. Target the White Jeger's weapon systems, he ordered. Full spread, quantum torpedoes. Dimitri, channel everything from the threshold resonance collectors into the weapons arrays. Captain, that could overload. Do it. The Amaterasu's Blueshift shuddered as power beyond its design specifications flowed through its systems. Emergency klaxons wailed as safety protocols engaged and were immediately overridden. For a moment that stretched like eternity, Kizu wondered if he had just destroyed his own ship. Then the torpedoes launched, not the usual complement of 6, but 18 quantum warheads supercharged with energy drawn from the celestial threshold itself. They streaked toward the White Jeger like avenging angels, their warheads glowing with barely contained power. The alien flagship's defensive systems engaged, destroying most of the incoming torpedoes in brilliant explosions. But 3 made it through, impacting against the White Jeger's hull with force that sent shockwaves through space itself. When the light faded, the White Jeger was wounded but not destroyed. However, the weapon system that had nearly killed them was now a twisted ruin of melted metal and crystal. For the first time since the battle began, Kizu allowed himself a moment of hope. The wounded White Jeger fell back among its escorts, trailing gases and debris like blood in water. But Hierarch Veltaron's retreat was tactical, not defeat. The remaining 16 vessels of the alien fleet moved with renewed aggression, their formation tightening into a defensive wall that bristled with weapons. Damage report, Kizu called, gripping the command chair as another salvo of energy beams hammered their failing shields. We're holding together, but barely, Dimitri's voice crackled through the comm, strain evident in every syllable. The resonance collectors are stable for now, but another power surge like that will fry every circuit in the ship. Also, we've lost contact with Squadron Leader Sato's fighter wing. Kizu's heart clenched at the mention of Yuki's squadron. 12 pilots, most barely out of training, thrown against an alien armada to buy precious seconds. Through the tactical display, he could see scattered debris where the human fighters had made their last stands, taking 2 Valkyrie escorts with them but paying the ultimate price. Sir, incoming transmission from the Hegemony Fleet, Communications Officer Okafor announced. It's Veltaron again. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the Hierarch's alien visage. Where before his 3 eyes had held cold calculation, now they burned with something approaching respect, and perhaps the faintest hint of uncertainty. Captain Nakamura, Veltaron said, his harmonious voice carrying new undertones. Your warriors fight with unexpected ferocity. The war singers of my fleet speak of human courage in tones usually reserved for our greatest enemies. But courage alone cannot overcome the inevitable. The inevitable? Kizu replied, noting how the alien fleet had stopped advancing. From where I sit, Hierarch, it looks like your inevitable victory is taking longer than expected. Indeed. Veltaron's head tilted in what might have been admiration. My warsinger Kithara studies your tactical patterns. She believes humans fight not just for territory or resources, but for concepts. For ideas that exist only in your minds. This is unusual among spacefaring species. Commander Blackthorn stepped closer to Kizu's side, her tactical board showing the alien fleet's curious stillness. He's buying time, she whispered. But for what? As if summoned by her words, the answer appeared on long-range sensors. Nalani Keogh's voice carried barely controlled panic as she made her report. "Captain, massive energy signature approaching from the system's edge. Something big, bigger than anything I've ever seen." The view screen automatically adjusted, zooming out to show the distant but growing silhouette of what could only be described as a mobile space station. It dwarfed even the White Jeger, its hull covered in the same bone-white material but carved with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and writhe when observed directly. "The Void Sanctum," Veltaran said, noting their shocked expressions. "Fleet Master Zorian brings the final judgment. Your species' theft of cosmic power ends here, Captain. The threshold will be destroyed, along with any who defend it." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. The approaching vessel represented a level of technological achievement that made humanity's greatest ships look like toys. But more than its size, there was something fundamentally wrong about it, a wrongness that pressed against human minds like psychological static. "Time to intercept?" Kizu asked, his voice steady despite the dread growing in his chest. 43 minutes at current approach, Nalani replied. "Captain, I'm reading some kind of gravimetric distortion around that thing. It's pulling spacetime itself out of alignment." Esperanza Delacroix turned from her pilot station, her young face pale but determined. "Sir, if that thing gets close to the threshold, it won't matter who wins this battle. The gravitational interaction could destabilize the entire artifact." Kizu closed his eyes for a moment, weighing impossible choices. They were already outgunned 17-1, and now faced a superweapon that could destroy the very thing they were trying to protect. The logical choice was retreat, living to fight another day. But logic had never been humanity's strongest suit. "Dimitri, how much power can we draw from the threshold without burning out completely? If we bypass every safety protocol and route power directly through the main conduits? Maybe enough for one massive strike. But Captain, the ship won't survive it. The resonance feedback alone will tear us apart. And if we channel that power into a ramming attack?" Silence stretched across the bridge as the implication sank in. Rhiannon was the first to speak, her voice quiet but unwavering. "The kinetic energy would be enormous. Enough to cripple even something that size." "It's suicide," Dimitri protested through the comm. "No," Kizu replied, watching the Void Sanctum's steady approach. "It's a choice. The threshold represents humanity's future among the stars. If we run now, the Valkyrie will destroy it and humanity will remain trapped in our small corner of the galaxy forever. But if we can damage their superweapon enough to create doubt, show them that humans will pay any price to defend what's ours." He turned to face his crew, seeing his own resolve reflected in their faces. These weren't soldiers by choice, but they were human, and humans had a long history of standing against impossible odds when the stakes were high enough. "All hands," Kizu announced over the ship's comm, "we're going to attempt something that's never been tried before. We're going to ram the Void Sanctum at near light speed, powered by energy drawn from the celestial threshold itself. Escape pods will be launched in 15 minutes for anyone who chooses to leave. There will be no shame in that choice." But as the minutes ticked by, not a single member of the crew moved toward the escape pods. They were afraid. Kizu could see it in their faces, feel it in the ship's atmosphere, but they were staying. All of them. The escape pod bay doors remained sealed as the 15-minute deadline passed. Throughout the ship, nearly 300 souls had made their choice, and it was the same choice humans had been making since they first looked up at the stars, to reach for something greater than themselves, regardless of the cost. "All stations reporting ready for final maneuver," Commander Blackthorne announced, her voice carrying a mixture of pride and sorrow that Kizu felt in his bones. "The crew, they're remarkable, sir." "They're human," Kizu replied simply, studying the tactical display one last time. The Void Sanctum continued its inexorable approach, its gravitational distortions now visible as ripples in space itself. Around them, the Valkyrie fleet had pulled back, apparently unwilling to risk being caught in whatever devastation was about to unfold. Through the comm system, Dimitri's voice carried the controlled panic of an engineer pushing his equipment beyond all rational limits. Resonance collectors are drawing maximum power from the threshold. I've bypassed every safety system we have, and a few we borrowed from other ships. The containment fields are holding, but barely. When we engage the drive, we'll have perhaps 30 seconds before the entire power grid burns out. 30 seconds to cross 43 minutes of distance, Esperanza murmured from her pilot station, fingers dancing across controls with the fluid precision of a concert pianist. I'll need to thread the ship through a gravity well that's actively reshaping local spacetime. The navigation computer keeps crashing when it tries to plot a course. Then don't use the computer, Kizu said. Trust your instincts. You're the finest pilot I've ever served with, Esperanza. If anyone can do this, it's you. The young woman nodded, her jaw set with determination that reminded Kizu of every human explorer who had ever pointed their ship toward the unknown. Aye, Captain. Manual navigation it is. On the view screen, the White Jeger had taken position between the Amaterasu's Blueshift and the approaching Void Sanctum. Hierarch Veltaran's damaged flagship couldn't stop them, but it could serve as a final obstacle, forcing their attack run to account for one more variable in an already impossible equation. Incoming transmission from Veltaran, Okafor reported. Put it through. The Hierarch's alien features filled the screen, his three eyes now showing something Kizu had never expected to see, regret. When he spoke, his harmonic voice carried undertones of what might have been respect. Captain Nakamura, my warsinger Kithara has convinced me to offer one final chance for your survival. Surrender now, and I will ensure your crew is treated with honor. Your species shows promise, it would be wasteful to extinguish such potential. Generous of you, Hierarch, Kizu replied. But humans have a saying, give me liberty, or give me death. We didn't come this far among the stars just to bow down when someone tells us we're not worthy of our discoveries. Veltaran's eyes closed briefly, and when they reopened, they held what looked like genuine sadness. Then you choose to become legend rather than live as prisoners. The warsingers will remember this day, Captain. Your names will be sung among the stars long after your bodies have returned to cosmic dust. I can think of worse epitaphs, Kizu said. See you on the other side, Hierarch. The transmission ended, and for a moment the bridge existed in perfect silence, the eye of a storm that was about to reshape the local star system. Then Kizu gave the order that would transform the Amaterasu's Blueshift from a warship into a weapon. All hands, brace for acceleration. Dimitri, channel everything from the threshold. Esperanza, take us home. The ship didn't accelerate, it catapulted. Power beyond comprehension flooded through systems never designed to contain such forces, and the Blueshift went from sublight to near-relativistic velocity in seconds that felt like hours. The inertial dampeners screamed and failed, slamming everyone aboard against bulkheads with crushing force. Emergency lighting strobed wildly as primary systems overloaded in cascading failures that would have been catastrophic under any other circumstances. But they were moving, faster than any human vessel had ever traveled, powered by energies drawn from the celestial threshold itself. Through the chaos of alarms and failing systems, Kizu could hear Esperanza calling out course corrections, her voice steady despite the impossible forces trying to tear the ship apart around them. The White Jeger tried to intercept them, its remaining weapon systems tracking their impossible trajectory. Energy beams that should have vaporized them instead passed through space where they had been microseconds before. At their current velocity, the Blueshift was outrunning light itself, creating a bow wave of distorted spacetime that made targeting almost impossible. Almost. One beam found its mark, tearing through their starboard hull and venting 3 entire decks to space. The ship bucked like a wounded animal, but Esperanza's hands never left the controls, guiding them through the narrow gap between the White Jeger's position and the Void Sanctum's gravity well. Impact in 10 seconds, she called out, her voice barely audible over the sound of the ship tearing itself apart. All hands, brace for. The collision happened faster than human perception could process. The Amaterasu's Blueshift, traveling at 97% of light speed and massing nearly 2 million tons, struck the void sanctum amidships with kinetic energy that briefly outshone the system's star. For an instant that seemed to last forever, matter and energy existed in perfect balance, creating forces that hadn't been seen since the universe's birth. When the light faded, both ships were gone, replaced by an expanding sphere of superheated plasma and exotic matter that painted the surrounding space in colors that had no names. But their sacrifice had meaning. The void sanctum's destruction sent shockwaves through the Valkyrie fleet that went beyond mere tactics or strategy. They had just witnessed something unprecedented, a species willing to destroy itself rather than surrender its dreams. The explosion's aftermath painted the void in impossible colors, radiation signatures cascading across spectrums that made sensors weep electronic tears. Where the Amaterasu's Blueshift and the void sanctum had met, nothing remained but expanding gas clouds and the twisted debris of technologies that had pushed the boundaries of physics itself. Aboard the White Jeger, Hierarch Veltaran stood motionless before the tactical display, his three eyes reflecting the fading light of human sacrifice. Around him, his bridge crew maintained the silence traditional after witnessing great warriors fall in battle. The humans had chosen extinction over surrender, and that choice demanded respect, even from their enemies. Hierarch, Warsinger Kithra's voice carried harmonics of awe and confusion. The energy readings, the humans somehow channeled power directly from the threshold artifact. Such a feat should have been impossible for their technological level. Nothing about this species follows expected patterns, Veltaran replied, his harmonic voice softer than usual. Fleet Master Zorian believed them to be typical expanding primitives, aggressive but ultimately predictable. He was wrong. The Warsinger's bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns that conveyed deep thought. Among the Valkyrie, Warsingers were more than military advisors, they were philosophers of conflict, students of how different species approached the fundamental questions of survival and death. Kithra had served in dozens of campaigns, witnessed the fall of civilizations that had spanned millennia, but she had never seen anything quite like humanity's final gambit. They fought not just for territory or resources, she mused, but for an ideal. For the concept of freedom itself. Most species surrender when faced with certain extinction. These humans chose to become extinction rather than live under our terms. Veltaran's attention shifted to the celestial threshold, still pulsing with ancient energies in the distance. The artifact remained undamaged despite the massive explosion nearby, its crystalline structure apparently immune to the forces that had vaporized two capital ships. But something had changed. The energy patterns emanating from the threshold were different now, stronger, more complex, as if the human sacrifice had somehow awakened dormant systems within the ancient construct. Analysis of the threshold's new configuration? Veltaran requested. Troubling, Kithra admitted. The power output has increased by 300%. More concerning, the dimensional gateway functions appear to be expanding. If these readings are accurate, the threshold is no longer limited to faster-than-light travel. It's becoming something far more significant. On the main viewer, the threshold's crystalline matrix was indeed changing, new connections forming between previously inert sections. The humans' desperate gambit had somehow triggered a transformation that turned their defensive position into something approaching a strategic revolution. The artifact that had once allowed rapid travel between star systems was evolving into something that could reshape the galaxy's political landscape entirely. Communication from the Hegemony High Command, reported Fleet Communications Coordinator Thyron. They demand immediate status updates on the threshold's destruction. Veltaran considered his options carefully. The High Command had ordered the threshold's destruction based on their understanding of its original capabilities. But if the artifact was now evolving beyond those parameters, the strategic calculus changed dramatically. More importantly, the human sacrifice had demonstrated something that forced the hierarch to question fundamental assumptions about their species. Delay the transmission, he ordered. Tell High Command we are conducting final verification sweeps of the target area. Hierarch, Kithara said carefully, such delay violates direct orders from the Hegemony Council. Yes, it does. Veltaran's three eyes focused on the expanding debris field where Captain Nakamura and his crew had chosen death over surrender. But those orders were based on incomplete intelligence. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that require reconsideration. Across the bridge, the crew exchanged glances that conveyed volumes in the subtle language of bioluminescent communication. Their hierarch was suggesting something unprecedented, questioning a direct order from the hegemony's ruling council. Such actions had consequences that extended far beyond individual careers. They could result in the entire fleet being declared rogue and hunted by their own forces. But Veltaran had spent decades studying warfare, and he recognized a turning point when he saw one. The humans' final stand had revealed something about their species that changed everything. They weren't just another expanding civilization to be managed or contained. They were something new, a species that could evolve not just technologically but philosophically, adapting their very concepts of victory and defeat to circumstances that would break other races entirely. Warsinger, initiate long-range scans of human space, he commanded. I want to know everything about their homeworld, their colonies, their population centers. If we're going to engage this species again, we need to understand what drives them. You believe there will be further conflict? Kithara asked. I believe, Veltaran said slowly, that Captain Nakamura and his crew just declared war on the entire hegemony. They may be dead, but their message is very much alive. On the tactical display, the remaining Valkyrie vessels held their positions around the transformed threshold, no longer advancing toward their original objective. The artifact continued its metamorphosis, each new configuration releasing energy signatures that suggested capabilities beyond current understanding. The silence on the bridge stretched until Thyron spoke again. Hierarch, High Command is demanding immediate response. Fleet Admiral Keshtar himself is requesting direct communication. Veltaran straightened, his decision made. Tell the Fleet Admiral that the situation has become more complex than anticipated. The humans have activated unknown defense systems within the Threshold artifact. Recommend immediate consultation with the Strategic Analysis Division before proceeding. It was a lie, but one that bought time for deeper consideration. The human sacrifice had revealed something that the hegemony's leadership needed to understand before committing to further conflict. Some wars could be won through superior firepower and tactical brilliance. Others required understanding the enemy's true nature. And Hierarch Veltaran was beginning to suspect that humanity represented the latter type of challenge. 3 days after the destruction of the Amaterasu's Blueshift, shock waves from the battle were spreading across human space faster than the light that carried news of the sacrifice. Emergency sessions of the Colonial Council convened on every major world, while military commanders struggled to comprehend reports that seemed to defy both physics and rational strategic thinking. On Luna Base, Admiral Sarah Chenvaldez stood before a holographic recreation of the battle's final moments, watching the same impossible sequence for the 20th time. The data was clear but incomprehensible. Captain Nakamura had somehow channeled power directly from the celestial threshold, accelerating his ship to near light speed in seconds and ramming a Valkyrie superweapon with kinetic force equivalent to a stellar explosion. Computer, replay from timestamp 14 hours 32 minutes and 7 seconds, she commanded, her voice hoarse from hours of analysis sessions. The hologram reset, showing the Blueshift's desperate acceleration toward the alien behemoth. Admiral Chenvaldez had known Kizu Nakamura for 15 years, had watched him develop from a promising exploration captain into one of humanity's finest commanders. But nothing in his service record suggested the capability for the tactical innovation that had saved the Threshold at the cost of his ship and crew. Admiral, came the voice of her aide, Commander Marcus Webb. Priority transmission from the Threshold sector. It's from, well, you'd better see for yourself. The hologram flickered and was replaced by the image of Hierarch Veltaran, his alien features immediately recognizable from intelligence briefings. That he was communicating directly with human command represented a significant departure from Valkyrie protocol, which typically routed all communications through diplomatic channels. Admiral Chenvaldez, the hierarch began, his harmonic voice carrying undertones that human translators had difficulty parsing. I am Hierarch Veltaran of the 47th Hegemony Fleet. I request formal parley under the Galactic Accords regarding the incident at the Celestial Threshold 3 days past. The Admiral forced her expression to remain neutral despite the shock of receiving direct communication from an alien military commander. I'm listening, Hierarch. Captain Nakamura's final action has created complications that extend beyond our original mission parameters. The Celestial Threshold artifact has undergone significant metamorphosis as a result of the energy discharge from your vessel's destruction. My Warsinger believes these changes may have galactic implications. Chenvaldez felt her pulse quicken. What kind of changes? The threshold is no longer simply a faster-than-light travel gateway. Current analysis suggests it has become a nexus point for dimensional manipulation, a technology that could fundamentally alter the balance of power among spacefaring civilizations. My government ordered its destruction based on its original capabilities. The enhanced version presents different considerations. The implications hit her like a physical blow. If the threshold had evolved beyond its original function, humanity now possessed something that could change everything. But they also possessed something that every other galactic power would either want to control or see destroyed. What are you proposing, Hierarch? A temporary cessation of hostilities pending full analysis of the artifact's new capabilities. My fleet will maintain position around the threshold but will not attempt to destroy it until the Hegemony Council can reassess the strategic situation. And in exchange? Your species provides technical data on how Captain Nakamura achieved his impossible acceleration. The power channeling technique he employed should not have been possible with human technology. Understanding this capability is now a matter of galactic security. Admiral Chenvaldez paused, considering the ramifications. Sharing human technical innovations with an alien power violated numerous security protocols, but the alternative might be immediate resumption of a war that humanity couldn't win. More importantly, the Hierarch's request suggested something significant. The Valkyrie were genuinely concerned about the threshold's transformation. I'll need to consult with the Colonial Council, she said finally. How long are you prepared to maintain this ceasefire? 7 of your days. After that, I will be required to carry out my original orders regardless of changed circumstances. The transmission ended, leaving Chenvaldez alone with implications that made her head spin. She activated her personal comm unit, preparing to wake up officials across human space with news that would fundamentally alter humanity's relationship with the galaxy. But as she began making calls, her eyes drifted back to the holographic recreation of the Blueshift's final moments. Captain Nakamura had made a choice that saved the threshold and possibly changed the course of galactic history. Now the question was whether humanity could prove worthy of his sacrifice. On the display, the moment of collision played out in silent destruction, matter and energy briefly achieving perfect balance before transforming into something greater than the sum of their parts. It was, she realized, a perfect metaphor for what humanity might become if they could navigate the challenges ahead. The threshold was no longer just humanity's gateway to the stars. It was their chance to fundamentally alter what it meant to be human in a galaxy filled with ancient powers and impossible technologies. Captain Nakamura and his crew had paid the ultimate price to secure that opportunity. The question now was what humanity would do with it. 6 months later, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the transformed celestial threshold, watching as the crystalline matrix pulsed with energies that had redefined humanity's place in the galaxy. The artifact bore little resemblance to its original form. What had once been a simple faster-than-light gateway now resembled a miniature cosmos, with geometric patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions human eyes couldn't properly perceive. The modifications are holding stable, reported Dr. James Morrison, the lead scientist on the joint human-Valkyrie research team that had spent months studying the threshold's new capabilities. We can now open stable gateways not just across space, but across dimensional barriers that were previously thought impossible to breach. Beside him, Warsinger Kithra's bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns that conveyed deep contemplation. The Valkyrie had originally come to destroy the threshold, but Captain Nakamura's sacrifice had transformed both the artifact and their understanding of humanity's potential. The energy resonance patterns suggest the artifact is still evolving, Kithra observed. Your captain's final action didn't just trigger a transformation, it began a process that may continue for generations. Elena nodded, her thoughts drifting to the memorial wall that now stood where the Amaterasu's Blueshift had made its final stand. 300 names etched in crystalline material that had been formed from the actual debris of the collision, a monument created from the very atoms of heroism itself. Have you made your decision regarding the Hegemony Council's proposal? She asked Kithra. The Warsinger's harmonic voice carried undertones of something that might have been regret. Hierarch Veltaran has presented our findings to the High Command. They have agreed to recognize humanity as a protected developing species, with rights to maintain and study the threshold without interference. It was a remarkable diplomatic victory, but Elena understood the cost. The hegemony's protection came with implicit restrictions on human expansion and requirements for shared research data. Humanity had gained security and technological advancement, but at the price of some measure of independence. And the other powers? The Confederation? The Machine Collective? They have been persuaded that humanity's stewardship of the threshold serves galactic stability, Kithra replied diplomatically. Captain Nakamura's final action demonstrated that your species would rather destroy unprecedented technology than see it fall into hostile hands. This has earned considerable respect among elder civilizations. Elena walked to the observation platform's edge, looking out at the space where the battle had unfolded. The debris field was gone now, incorporated into the threshold's expanded structure, but the memory remained. Every human ship that passed through this sector performed a brief ceremony, a moment of silence for the crew that had chosen sacrifice over surrender. He would have hated being called a hero, Elena murmured, thinking of the captain she had known since academy days. Kizu always said he was just doing his job. Perhaps, Kithra said, moving to stand beside her. But among my people, the Warsingers have composed a battle hymn about the Amaterasu's Blueshift. It speaks of warriors who chose to become starfire rather than live in chains. Such songs are sung for millennia. Dr. Morrison approached, carrying a data tablet with readings from the latest threshold experiments. Ambassador, you should see this. We've managed to establish a stable connection to the Andromeda Galaxy. The implications for long-range exploration are staggering, Elena finished. I know. James, have you considered what Captain Nakamura would think about us using his sacrifice to leap between galaxies? The scientist paused, his enthusiasm dampened by the weight of the question. I think he'd want us to use every advantage we could gain. The threshold isn't just a monument to their sacrifice, it's the foundation of humanity's future among the stars. In the distance, a new human exploration vessel was approaching the threshold, the UES Nakamura, the first ship designed specifically to utilize the artifact's enhanced capabilities. It would carry a crew of 50 on humanity's first mission beyond the Milky Way, carrying both the hope of discovery and the responsibility of representing their species to whatever civilizations awaited in distant galaxies. Elena watched the ship approach, noting how its hull bore etchings of the same geometric patterns that now characterized the threshold itself. Humanity was adapting, evolving, incorporating the lessons learned from their greatest sacrifice into the foundation of their expanding civilization. The crew of the Nakamura requested permission to carry something from the memorial, Dr. Morrison said quietly. A small fragment of the crystalline debris. They want to take a piece of the original Blueshift with them to Andromeda. Approved, Elena said without hesitation. Let them carry the memory of heroes to new galaxies. As the UES Nakamura began its final approach to the threshold, Elena felt the weight of history pressing down on her shoulders. Captain Kizu Nakamura and his crew had died believing they were saving humanity's future. They couldn't have known that their sacrifice would transform that future beyond recognition, turning humanity from a minor species struggling for recognition into guardians of technology that could reshape the galaxy itself. The threshold pulsed once, brilliant light cascading across its crystalline structure as the Nakamura disappeared into dimensions that had no names. For a moment, Elena could swear she felt something, a presence, a whisper of acknowledgement from the space where heroes had chosen to become legend. In the vast silence that followed, she spoke words that would be recorded in human history as the first prayer offered at humanity's greatest monument, for those who chose the stars over chains, for those who became light to show us the way, may your sacrifice guide us to wonders beyond imagination. The celestial threshold pulsed again, and in that light, Elena saw the future spreading out like an infinite map of possibility. Humanity would explore new galaxies, encounter civilizations beyond current comprehension, and face challenges that would test every lesson learned from the battle that had changed everything. But they would face those challenges as a species that had proven its worth through sacrifice, carrying the memory of heroes who had chosen to become Starfire rather than accept limitations on human dreams. The stars waited, infinite and welcoming, painted in the light of heroism that would never fade.